Welcome back, and as we promised, we are going to shed more light on the important visit of UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres to El Arish and to Rafah border crossing. To shed more light on the visit, we are very much delighted to have with us via phone His Excellency Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister. Thank you very much for being with us, sir, and a very good morning.
Good morning to you. Thank you for having me.
Sir, let's start immediately with the visit, with its timing, and with the many messages which were sent by Guterres during his visit. The visit comes as Israel announced more than once that they are about to launch a massive offensive in Rafah on the border with Egypt. And despite the international calls to stop that and to try at least to reach a humanitarian ceasefire, the answer is all the time no. How do you see the visit of Guterres and repeating the call for Israel to stop its genocide war?
Well, unfortunately, I mean, so far there are several attempts that were done, whether by Egypt, of course, and even the United States and Qatar and all the other approaches to convince Israel that it's not in anyone's interest to launch this ground attack on Rafah have failed so far to convince the Hebrew state to understand that the entering Rafah will result a catastrophic situation more than what it is right now. I mean, we have people already facing famine and hunger. Nevertheless, Israel is insisting on continuing its war and launching its war until the last Palestinian alive, actually, or so it seems. Although we received even Mr. Blinken here and other officials, and there were several calls from the American administration that this should not happen, nevertheless, Israel is insisting on continuing its genocide to achieve what it calls the goals of this war, which is the forced liberation of the hostages on one hand and the total destruction of Hamas and all other Palestinian resistance movements. And it seems that Israel is above any kind of law, whether we are talking about international law or humanitarian laws.
Yeah.
And Israel, why is it doing that? Because it knows that it will get the support it needs from its traditional allies, the United States, and the EU and its countries. This is the real deal. I mean, they are not really serious about stopping Israel from committing the genocide it's committing, simply because they still keep to provide Israel with the diplomatic support and, of course, the armament and the ammunition that it needs to continue launching its war. Unfortunately, we are talking about a very small enclave that is holding over 1.5 million Palestinians. Most of them are refugees from other areas of Gaza, and the price will be humongous. I mean, if they enter Rafah with all this density.
And President Sisi warned against that more than once. Also, our Foreign Minister Sameh Shoukry, in every occasion, he warns against that much. But as you've kindly mentioned, unfortunately, Israel is continuing its genocide war in Gaza. Returning back to the visit of Guterres, and how do you see the visit as one of the proofs on the ground to refute the Israeli allegations that there are some obstacles from our side, from the Egyptian side? The Rafah border crossing from our side is open 24 hours a day, and there are a chain of trucks, unfortunately, waiting for the Israeli side to let them go into the Palestinian enclave. How do you see this, sir?
Well, I see it as a continuation of the Israeli rejection to help the civilians, as it claims that it's trying to allow humanitarian aid. Actually, it's not. It's putting as much obstacles as it can, to the point that even its closest allies, such as the United States and others, are forced to either use air to make air droppings, or sea to try to reach the harmed civilian population in Gaza, because Israel refuses to open any crossing, even for its closest allies, during this war. Unfortunately, I mean, the world is looking and turning a blind eye to Israel. I mean, the idea of just begging Israel to allow these humanitarian aid without actually putting real pressure on Israel that the cost of this is going to cost its relationship, for example, with those countries, or that we are going to stop funding or giving arms to Israel. All these were never attempted by the United States or its Western allies. And accordingly, Israel is continuing to do, because they know that they have accomplices who are going to help it to continue its war, even if they claim differently. So far, we haven't seen real pressure from the side of the Western allies, who are mainly funding and giving arms to Israel to continue and to launch this war and to enter Rafah. So Israel is going to continue with its invasion and with its genocide and with its war crimes, because it has the diplomatic cover that will help her to continue it and to launch it.
Yes, sir. And to some of the statements which were said by Guterres to reporters yesterday, he said that the UN is going to continue working with Egypt all around the clock to make sure that the best we can do is going to be implemented on the ground, because unfortunately the humanitarian workers said that only fifth of the humanitarian aid reach the Palestinians, and fears of famine are always there. How do you see this also, sir, as a kind of course, nobody would dare question the Egyptian role, but here we see Guterres reminding the whole world of what Egypt is doing, and reminding the whole world that the only country with which the UN is trying all the time to have contacts to solve this crisis is Egypt.
Well, we have to mention that the United Nations and its different organizations tried their best from the beginning of the war. This is not the first round or the first visit of Mr. Guterres. I mean, he was here previously, and he made several important statements to emphasize on the necessity of deterring Israel, of continuing its war, and to remind, as you just mentioned, the role of Egypt in this war. Nevertheless, I mean, the United Nations, and especially represented here by the UNRWA, which is the most important organization here on land, have been hit severely by Israel. I mean, we have over 150 of its workers being killed by Israel. We have unproven allegations that were made by Israel about 8 of its personnel, which represent a fraction of, I mean, we are talking about 0.03% of its workers, if we consider those 8 persons who have been accused of participating in the attacks of the 7th of October. Nevertheless, several countries have stopped their funding to this organization just based on an unproven allegation made by Israel, and this was enough to provoke this reaction from those countries by stopping its funding, although the importance of this organization to distribute the food on the Palestinians is the only organization that is well placed on earth to be able to deliver what is asked to do. However, Mr. Guterres have insisted that the organization is continuing its work, but of course we need to enter the humanitarian aid to the Palestinian side, and Israel is preventing us from doing that, not just Egypt, but all the countries who wants to help. Egypt have always been the #1 contributor in all humanitarian aid to Gaza. Over 80% of any humanitarian aid that enters Gaza is coming from Egypt and from Egyptians
80% is coming from Egypt. Sir, also, since you mentioned there should be pressure on Israel from the West or from the international community in general to stop a genocide war, and unfortunately, until the moment at least, it's not working. But how about the pressure coming from inside Israel? I mean, we are all the time seeing and watching the Israelis, radio and TV themselves are speaking about the demonstrations and about the families of the hostages, having their pressure on Netanyahu from inside Israel to stop this war and for the hostages to return back, particularly after the announcement that some of the hostages were already killed in some of the Israeli strikes on Palestinian targets. How do you see this?
Well, actually, we have to look at it in a very careful way. I mean, we have to be careful how to judge the American public. It's not a secret that the majority of Israelis really wants to continue this war on Palestinians. The only thing that is deterring them actually is the hostages that are being kept there. I mean, in other words, if they can manage to get their hostage, they will even launch a bigger war. This is the only leverage that is with the Palestinian resistance movement right now, is and this is what is actually holding for some time the ground operations in Gaza. However, this have no bearing. Israel has killed already several of its hostages, and I think that the Israeli government is seeing those hostages as a collateral result of this war, that if they lose. But the most important thing for them is to continue the destruction of Gaza, to make it impossible for Palestinians to live, because this matches and rhyme with their goal to evacuate the Gaza Strip by land or by sea from the Palestinian population. And in order to do so, they just want to keep carpet bombing Gaza. I mean, there is no war in the world that needs to destruct over 70% of its civilian targets, such as homes, hospitals, schools, universities. I mean, Israel has been doing everything possible.
To lead the civilians into starvation. No war where most
Exactly.
of the martyrs are women, children, and minors.
Exactly.
Here we are talking about ethnic cleansing, about a genocide war. This has nothing to do with, and because of that, I'll not call it at all Israel-Hamas war. It's Israeli genocide war on the Palestinian territories. That's it. But let me go to another side of the coin, with some political analysts saying that because this war is taking place in the very same year the American presidential elections are taking place, this is something which is really affecting that. I mean, Joe Biden himself, or the American administration of Joe Biden, to be accurate, is not taking any decision on the ground more and more because of the elections. First, they are busy with their campaigns, and second, the voters, who is to vote with the Israeli side and who is not, they are calculating it this way. True?
Exactly. Well, the decisions in the American administration have always been like that. The idea is that what we think is, in Egypt, for instance, when we take any decision regarding any national issue, we just do it based on the national interest of the Egyptian people. In the United States, it's different. The idea of voting, the idea of being sure to be re-elected is one of the most important issues in the United States.
Yeah.
And whoever dares, actually, to speak out against the Israeli state is going to be accused of anti-Semitism and going to be accused of not siding with the right side, which is Israel, of course.
Yeah.
And accordingly, make no mistake, any senator or any congressman, and of course any person higher in the American administration, can be sure that he will not be re-elected. They are ready. The Jewish group, the Jewish community is ready to
Jewish
pay
lobby.
thousands of dollars in order to ensure that this person will not get re-elected. And accordingly, the decisions are not made, like I mentioned, in Egypt, for the national American interest, but made rather for these reasons, which are the elections and being re-elected once again. So that's why the American year of election, which is this year, none of the candidates for the presidency or even President Biden himself are ready to risk the Jewish community votes, and accordingly, they keep supporting Israel in its genocide to make sure that
And
the
it's
narrow...
not for the Jewish lobby in Congress, it's for the Jewish businessmen or the tycoons, to be accurate, with their impact on the American economy. Let's wait and see and cross our fingers that tomorrow is going to be a better day and we are going to reach a ceasefire in the Palestinian territories. Well, Ambassador Medhat Meligy, former Assistant Foreign Minister, thank you very much for your input, sir, and have a very good day. Right after the short break, we are going to return back with more, so stay tuned.